Welcome to episode 18 of the Tuesday Talk IU Athletics podcast, joined by Director of Athletic Communications Larry Dealman and Student Assistant Connor Kikowski. This is Sports Information Director Andy Alvarez, bringing you the results and news from the past week in Immaculata Athletics and previewing the week ahead. We hope everyone kept safe and is doing well during the aftermath of Sunday's storm, with the university closed on Mondays and Tuesday this week. We are recording our first ever completely remote show with each of us in different locations. So it's kind of fun today to be able to be on this show this way. Obviously, Larry and Connor, I guess everything went okay with you guys with the storm. How did you guys get through it? How did everything fare for you?
It was pretty good for us. I took a ruler outside yesterday on my front lawn, and at the time, I measured 8 inches of snow. I don't know if there was like a couple more flurries after I had measured it, but yeah, it was about 8 inches, maybe even 9 or 10. So definitely it's going to take a little bit to melt all that snow away. And yeah, I'll probably have to go dig out my car after we're done here.
Yeah, I'm still on campus and it was kind of a mess yesterday, so I didn't really leave the apartment too much, except when I had to venture out to the dining hall. That was fun. But yeah, it was a little bit of a chaotic day. I did actually go out at 11 o'clock last night to scrape off my car because I didn't want it to freeze. And I have to do it today because I knew it was going to be all ice, but I do have to dig it out now because I have to move my car again so they can plow that side of the parking lot. So it's a whole process here, but we're alive.
Yeah, I survived that at our house out here in Downingtown. Yesterday, I went outside about 2:30 for the first time just to clear off that initial layer of snow that was on the car because it was easy to move. That I didn't want all that to freeze to it. The wind was a pretty wicked and cold and everything like that. But I went out and did that. Stayed out there about 10 minutes was sufficient to be out there. Then I came back inside and, then watched some college basketball on TV, then watched the football games and did my usual Sunday sports information director duties, the nominations, things along that lines, and everything. And then I'm fortunate that, I stocked up on food ahead of time, so I haven't had to really do anything. But once we wrap things up here, I think I'll be heading outside and make sure to get the car out officially for the first time and see where I'm going and, hopeful to be able to more mobile, the rest of the time until we're back in our office. We'll get started. It was obviously, busy week with both basketball teams. Women's team was home on Wednesday, scored a big win over Marymount in an Atlantic East Conference game. Men were on the road. They did fall down at Marymount. Then obviously the swim teams were in action down at Widener. Women in a quad meet, men in a tri meet. And then basketball was back on campus on Saturday. We had a doubleheader here at Alumni Hall prior to the storm. The women's team scored a big win over Pratt. The men's team had a very strong game and then pulling out the big win over Pratt. And then the swim teams were in action down in the pool at Alumni Hall. It was senior day, so they honored their seniors and they competed against Arcadia. This week, women's basketball is on the road on Thursday. For those who didn't see, that was originally scheduled for Wednesday, but the games this week got moved to Thursday due to the weather. The men will be home at Alumni Hall hosting Marywood. And then they'll both be back here on Saturday for a huge AEC doubleheader with Newman. Always good battles when two schools get together. Looking forward to being back at Alumni Hall for that. And then the men's and women's indoor track teams return to action on Saturday when they travel up to Alvernia for the Plex Shootout. We'll be joined later in the show by our guest, Jayla Gross of the women's track and field and cross country teams. Let's get started looking back at this past week's action. And we'll begin right there with women's basketball. One of the biggest games we've had all season here. Immaculata survives in a 63 to 60 thriller versus Marymount. Game saw 11 lead changes and was tied 5 times. Back and forth the entire night. Felt like a playoff level game in January. Huge win at home to stay undefeated in the conference at 5-0. Carly Coleman was our player of the game. Monster night again for Carly. 22 points, 10 rebounds, and she added 4 block shots, 4 steals, 3 assists. Carly had her 10th double-double of the season and hit the go-ahead jumper with just 15 seconds remaining. She did on both ends of the floor, scoring, defending, rebounding. Big nights out of Abby Grillo, 12 points, big back-to-back threes in the third quarter. Riley Cassidy, 10 points, knocking down some timely shots. some big plays late in the fourth quarter, a lot of energy level, steal, hustle, diving on the floor for a rebound. Meg Robbins quietly had a impactful night, 8 rebounds, 3 blocks, physical presence inside. When the game got gritty, I mean, it was in the final minute, you get Marymount takes a 60 to 59 lead. 24 seconds left. Coleman answers with a huge pull-up jumper with 15 seconds left, and then you get a good defensive stop. Liv Vitor draws the offensive foul on legal screen by Marymount late, and then she sinks the 2 free throws. Half a second left to ice the game. Coach Whalen emphasized, the toughness, the resilience, and the will to win for the team. Winning close games builds confidence. What were your guys' thoughts on the game on Wednesday?
It was definitely a good game on Wednesday. Like you said, definitely was gritty at the end, and Carly hit that clutch jumper and then that offensive foul. That's obviously one of the better ways to get a game-winning defensive stop. Obviously, having the other team miss is one thing, but just they don't even get the shot up. They have an offensive foul. It just shows you that the team was ready for it and took the charge with ease. Carly Coleman, again, we've talked about her all season, and she had, so in the NBA, there's a term that it's rare. It's called a 5 by 5, and Carly almost had it against Marymount. So what that means is she had at least 5 points, 5 boards, 5 assists, 5 steals, and 5 blocks in a single game, and she had 22, 10, 3, 4, and 4. So really close to that 5 by 5. And if it's rare in the NBA, then college basketball, it's even rarer. So definitely an accomplishment for Carly Coleman as she just keeps dropping double doubles and hitting those big shots. But definitely a great one over Marymount. And not only are we undefeated in conference play, but we also have tiebreaker over them at the moment. Once that playoff seeding starts to become more solidified, that'll be huge as playoff seedings become more official and also for home court advantage.
Yeah, it was definitely a seesaw race on Wednesday night with the Marymount game, just going back and forth all game. But like, what was interesting, like I think it was like the last play, Brick called a timeout right before. I think we were down by a point. There was just like maybe 15 seconds left, and it just shows the team's confidence in Carly to make that. I think they were expecting a foul in it, but they didn't get it, and she ended up making like that turnaround jumper, which was awesome. That switched the momentum in our favor to help give us that win. So like. It was definitely awesome to see. I mean, I've been around this for 4 years. That was definitely one of my favorite moments so far over the championships and the men's lacrosse championship. But that was really fun to be on the table down for that game.
Yeah, I think those are some really good points. And you mentioned that offensive foul they drew. Key to that part was the coverage on the inbounds. You had a foul to give, so you take the foul out high, force them to inbound it again. Marymount had no timeouts left, and you covered Chandler Edelton. Carly neutralized her, and who's their big scorer at that point. You knew that's where they wanted the ball to go. And then Meg Robbins seals off the down low to Colway under the basket, and then it forced another player to try to make a move, and Colway tries to set a screen, but had to move into the screen, which made it the illegal screen, and that's where the foul occurs. So it was all on the defensive effort on that side. So, but then Saturday, finally they get that big win there. Then on Saturday, you come back. It's a little bit of a you have to really guard yourself in a game like Saturday where you're going up against a team that has not won a game in the conference yet against Pratt. First time you're ever playing them in women's basketball, and they were able to come out and another strong effort and earn a big win. You get Carly Coleman once again. Another double double, number 11 of the season, 13 points, 10 rebounds, then 6 steals, 6 assists, most steals by Money Mac in a game this season. You held Pratt to 32 points. You forced 29 turnovers. You converted that into 33 points. That was big. And then you get 36 points off your bench in that game for the Mighty Macs. You're able to get, your starters in there, get them their time, get a big lead, and then you're able to pull your starters out, get your younger players, get them playing time. You get 36 points off your bench. You get, Kira Benoit gets up scoring 9 points, her most in her career. And you get some other players making differences. And I think one thing I think that was really great to see for the Money Macs, their bench players. They won the Mac Medallion in the which is the team's Player of the Game award in the Marymount win. And then the fourth quarter crew, all the underclassmen and everything like that went into the game and played. They would have won the Mac Medallion from the team on Saturday. And I think one of the greatest things that you saw on Saturday, Cassidy Perry gets that steal and a driving layup, and the first timeout is called. The first player out on the court to congratulate her is Carly Coleman. That's a great thing to see that your star players and your leaders on your team, when your captains, are right out there supporting the bench players the same way the bench players support them. What were your guys' thoughts on Saturday's game?
Yeah, so you mentioned that the bench and the support they have, it definitely shows the unity and the loyalty they have and confidence they have in one another on the women's basketball team. But you mentioned that the bench was really big in this game. I mean, Morgan Robinson also had that one block, and I think Sophia Kordakis had that secured it with the rebound, and Kira Benoit just took it all the way for the layup. That was good to see. And yeah, 36 bench points is pretty good for our team. And it definitely shows that they have a strong future in us, especially with Livy Tora and Riley Cassidy moving on after this. But they also had big games this past week, so it was definitely good to see from the bench in this win over Pratt.
It was really just pure domination. I don't think there's any other way to describe it. The fact that Pratt nearly had as many turnovers as points just shows you how in control the Mighty Macs were from start to finish. And what's interesting is that they kept Pratt to fewer and fewer points in every quarter. So they scored their most points, 10 in the first, and it just kept going down, down, down. They only allowed 5 points in the fourth quarter. So that was definitely great to see on the defensive side. And like I just said with Carly Coleman in the Marymount game, almost achieving a 5 by 5, she was over halfway to a quadruple double against Pratt with the 13 points, 10 boards, 6 steals, and 6 assists. So she had almost actually done that against Kane earlier this year when they were down in Maryland for that Governor's Challenge. She was halfway to a quadruple double as well. So maybe one of these days, maybe one of these days we'll have her get a quadruple double or a 5 by 5. But definitely, this is like MVP type stuff that she's putting on the box score right now. And they got a big test with Marywood on Thursday, so hopefully they can get that win before they enter that second round of the 7 games against the other AEC opponents. So we'll see if they can get that big win up in Scranton.
And just to note, Carly Coleman was named the Atlantic East Conference Defensive Player of the Week this week. The third time this year she's won the Defensive Player of the Week award, and on top of having been the Player of the Week the last 2 weeks. So she's now a Player of the Week award winner for a third consecutive week and her fifth this season.
Moving on, let's go to men's basketball. It was a split week for the men. They fell to Marymount, but they bounced back with a nice home win over Pratt against Marymount. Tough road loss, 96-62 over in Arlington. There were some good stretches of competitiveness despite the final score. Immaculata jumped out to an early 11-7 lead. Marymount had a 9-0 run, but the turning point of the game was a 19-2 Marymount run late in the first half. But the Mighty Macs didn't fold at the half. Jeremiah Alexander had 11 of his 14 points in the second half, and his 14 points led the team overall. And what makes it even cooler was that was Jeremiah's first start of his career, the freshman guard getting his first career start. So he led the way. Down the stretch, there were 3 straight triples by Jalen Flowers, Marquise Peoples Jr., and Kevin Tellisford. But the deficit was just a little too large to climb out of. Just some other points in the box score. Manon Sipo had 5 assists, and Dylan Cruz with 3 steals on defense. Now, what's interesting to note, Dylan Cruz, as of the end of the Pratt game, so this is as of January 26th, Dylan is 104 points away from hitting 1,000 career points. So he is currently sitting at 896. Hopefully, we can see him hit the 1K marker, but that is just for reference. Guys, Marymount game was a little tough, but definitely some moments. And Marymount's a tough team anyway, so it was going to be a difficult game to deal with.
Yeah, that has been a difficult game for the last couple of years. They're a solid group, and they're thing about it that makes them a little scary at times. Marymount is they're a young group still. Most of those guys will be back again next year for that team. So they've been, a competitive team. Obviously, they had won it 2 years in a row. They lost in the final to Newman last year. So you knew this was going to be a tough trip. Hopefully, when they come here, you could kind of get yourself, a little bit of a roll, maybe build some momentum into that game, and get a better start in that game and try to be a little more competitive. But still, there were some. If you look at the numbers, there were some good things in that game. Hopefully, you could translate it going forward.
Yeah, obviously Marymount just a tough place to go to, especially on a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. It's a long trip during the week, so it's not always everyone's favorite thing to do. But there was some competitiveness. Obviously, yeah, Marymount tough team. I mean, we saw them and Newman go at it earlier this year, and they took down Newman by only a point. So obviously, those two will continue to battle out. But hopefully, when they come here to Alumni Hall in a couple of weeks, we can gain some momentum and see how we do in the home crowd.
All right, let's go over to the Pratt game. This was the second game of our doubleheader on Saturday at Alumni Hall, and the Mighty Macs got the sweep. Women took down Pratt, and then the men followed up with a 89-82 home win. It improves their record to 3-14 and 2-4 in Atlantic East Conference play. So definitely getting some good results over in conference play. What's interesting as of this recording as well in the playoff race, Marywood and Centenary are tied for fourth in the standings, and Immaculata is just one game behind them. And obviously, the men play Marywood this week, so a win there would be absolutely huge. It would give them tiebreaker and potentially move them up depending on how Centenary does as well. So they are very much in that 4 or 5 play-in race at the moment. The game overall, kind of a slow offensive start. The Mighty Mac's first basket did not come until about 14 and a half to go in the first half. They had hit a free throw earlier, but the first actual field goal did not come until a few minutes in. The Mighty Macs had a nice run, a 9-0 run to grab momentum once they settled in. Deuce Jackson hit a buzzer beater at the half, and then neither team could really pull away in the second half. Pratt briefly took the lead, and it just really tightened down the stretch. But Christian Chambers came to the rescue with a huge and one with 22 seconds left, and the free throw shooting sealed the game. What was interesting about the foul shots, Immaculata made 24 free throws. Pratt only attempted 24 free throws, really setting you apart from the opponent at the foul line. It shows the aggressiveness to try and draw the fouls. It was just a crazy game overall. Christian Chambers led the team with 22 points, 8 boards, and 2 steals. Dylan Cruz had 16 points, Mandon Sipo had 14, and Jaden Williams with 5 assists. Coach Kyle Stramera said after the game that he thought the team stayed connected, made plays when it mattered, and showed heart down the stretch, with it, which I think were very good points. And yeah, guys, just a very, very good game to get back in the win columns. Second Atlantic East win of the season. And Connor, I know it was definitely crazy at the scorers table. We had a lot of back and forth, a lot of couple turnovers that got out of hand, and definitely the number change for Pratt. So if you guys didn't see, Pratt, one of their players had to change numbers in the middle of the game because there was blood on his jersey. So we kept having to say, instead of number 7, we kept having to say 7 in quotations, or number 15. Or I was like, wait, who's that? So definitely got a little crazy, but got everything good.
Yeah, I was just about to mention the whole 7 controversy. Yeah, that was hard to do because I remember I kept saying lay up by 15. Oh wait, that's 7. Sorry, because we couldn't change in the stats right away. But yeah, but crazy things happen in games sometimes. But the thing that surprised me most was in the first half. I think both teams combined for like a total of 20 fouls, which was really something to see, and just showed like Vermacular making those 24 foul shots while only Pratt attempted 24. It shows the aggressive to draw fouls, and that's pretty much what ultimately you could argue won us this game. And another seesaw match, especially. But yeah, I think the game on Thursday is going to be huge, obviously, with Marywood and Centenary both tied. So a win over Marywood would be huge for our team, and then build some momentum as we get into the second rotation here in the Atlantic East Conference.
Yeah, I know being on the broadcast, that number switch was interesting as well. Being on the play-by-play call, having the player change from 7 to 15, just had to note who that was each time he had the ball, and but you also saw some good ball movement with the Mighty Macs in that first half. They hit a couple of three-pointers where they moved the ball around, like a few different players were able to move the passes. I think the one was like Cougar to down to the corner, the Flowers back to the corner, out to, another player got a good shot off and everything like that. So it was good to see the ball movement, guys playing the game the right way. Christian Chambers hitting a couple big shots in the second half, taking that ball to the basket, drawing the foul, making the foul shot. A great effort for the team coming out with a big win on Saturday. Climbing right back into competition in the Atlantic East Conference for those playoff spots. And we wrap up the first rotation of the schedule on Thursday. Another home game at Alumni Hall. Hopefully, you have a big crowd there. Come out and support the team. I think that helped the team. That Jim got loud in that fourth quarter, and I think that was a good thing to see for them. Even the other night with the women's team, being that it was a Wednesday night, the men's team wasn't there. By the end of that game, there was a good crowd and they're supporting in that game too. So I think that's important that we get the crowd support and hopefully they're able to find a way to battle Marywood and try to steal a win and move up in the standings. Saturday, the men will be hosting Newman here, so hopefully we'll big crowds for both games this week. But moving on to swimming. Women's swimming team they competed in the quad meet down at Widener against the host Widener, Lebanon Valley, and Bryn Mawr College. Immaculata fell to Widener and to Bryn Mawr, but they were able to get a win against Lebanon Valley. Tough competition with Widener and Bryn Mawr, very good. Lebanon Valley's a solid team as well. Win over them showed depth and competitiveness. Several swimmers had top three finishes and against a strong field. Standout performances were Ashley Badigan with second in the 200 free and the 100 free. Kira Wiley was second in the 100 fly and the third in the 500 free. And Delaney McPeak took third in the 200 individual medley. On Saturday, they had a home dual meet with Arcadia. Senior day at Alumni Hall Pool. Immaculata fell to Arcadia. They finished the regular season 5-7 overall. They're went 2-3 in Atlantic East Conference meets. The score aside the day was about celebrating the program and its seniors. Liz Ferguson and Bella Hernandez were honored before the meet. And competitive, some highlights in the Hannah Barber won first place in the 100 backstroke. Kira Wiley was second in the 1,000 free, third in the 100 free, and then Delaney McPeak was third in the 200 IM, and third in the 100 breaststroke. Next time they'll be in the pool will be at the Atlantic East Conference Championships, February 12th through the 15th at St. Mary's College in Maryland. Men's swimming, they competed in the tri-meet at Widener. Obviously, Bryn Mawr does not have a men's team. I mean, it's an all-women's college, so they competed against Widener and Lebanon Valley. Fortunately, they fell to both teams. They were a little more competitive with Lebanon Valley. They finished 3-6 overall and 1-3 in Atlantic East Conference meets. It was a challenging nights against, obviously deeper programs, but Aiden Gall, second in the 1,000 free and fourth in the 100 butterfly. Mike DiMattei was second in the 100 free, third in the 50 free, and Connor Ferguson finished fourth in the 200 free. On Saturday, they had a difficult meet against Arcadia. Arcadia is a very strong team, a lot of depth. So Immaculata did fall in that one. So their regular season, they ended up totally, 3-7 overall. 1-3 in the conference. And the individual bright spots, Mike DiMattei was first in the 200 free. Connor Ferguson was second in the 100 free. Lane Weitzel was third in the 50 free. And they'll be back in action at the Atlantic East Conference Championships in February 12th to the 15th at St. Mary's College of Maryland. Guys, any thoughts on the swimming?
Yeah, just some tough teams to face. Widener, I know, is, usually pretty good with their swim teams, and Lebanon Valley too with, their MAC teams. Of course, they're going to have some strong competition, and even like Bryn Mawr, with them being an all women's college, they're probably going to have some good swimmers on the women's side. And even Saturday with Arcadia, another MAC team. So really tough competition, but this is good to test your young swimmers. And obviously, with our teams, our women's team has a bigger rotation than the men's side, but still, it's good to see them put up a good fight against some tough competition. And that was their final, not only meets of the regular season, but also their final home meets as they go to St. Mary's College of Maryland in mid-February. So we get to see them one more time for 4 straight days, and then that'll wrap up their season. But some highlights overall for the season. They've had some great moments, couple program records, I believe, and they got to recognize their seniors, Liz Ferguson and Bella Hernandez. So some good performances all around, just some tough teams to face.
Yeah, a couple MAC teams to go up against, always a tough thing, but some good performances. Ashley Badge and Kira Wiley Delaney Pete both got some runners up, or sorry, swimmers up, I guess that's what they say in the pool. Hannah Barmer had a first place finish this week. So yeah, some good results, and hopefully they have some good results down there in St. Mary's. It's a nice pool to swim in at the Atlantic East Conference Championships. So we are going to switch gears now and talk about men's volleyball, who had a match this past week on Wednesday at Valley Forge. And after a tough opening loss to Randolph-Macon, who was receiving votes in the top 25, they bounced back with a 3-0 sweep over Valley Forge. The sets went 25 to 11, 25 to 8, and 25 to 8 again to follow. Josh McGurl led the way with 10 kills. Freshman Luke Durantenzo had 24 assists. Nolan Susky had 5 aces. JP Farley had 10 digs. And the men's team has a break before their next match. It won't be until Thursday, February 19th at Arcadia. And I believe their next home match is February 21st against Ramapo, I want to say. But yeah, it was a good win for men's volleyball overall after a tough opening loss. What do you all think?
Yeah, that was a good win for them. It was an opponent that last year you played them in two matches, and in both those matches you had a lead, you let it get away, you lost the 5 sets to them. So I think it was good for them to go out there, kind of go at them, get the big win, kind of go into a little bit of break in their schedule while they're on a good roll. And you have Luke Dortenzo with a good start with the 24 assists. He also had 4 service aces as well. JP Farley had the led the team in digs. So, your specialist positions, your libero and your setter are playing well through your first two matches, which is good because they're both new to the team this year. And then obviously you count on Josh McGurl and Noah Zunski to be bigger players for them. So it's a good win, and hopefully, yeah, you were correct that it will be Ramapo will be their next home match, and then they open up United East Conference play against Gallaudet in March. So that's when they actually will open play in the United East Conference then. So that was good week for them, and hopefully, when they come back, they get some good practices in before that time and build up to that match with Arcadia.
Yeah, it was a good win overall, like you guys said. And what's interesting, I think I had mentioned it on here previously, if not definitely to you two. So we faced Valley Forge twice this season, and this match, since we faced them twice, this match was non-conference, but the next time we face them is a conference meet in the United East. So it's good to see that we had a convincing win over Valley Forge. So hopefully we can repeat that same result later in the year and try and get a win over them for the conference standings and hopefully be competitive in the United East. So just a good win overall. I mean, 25-11 and then two 25-8 sets. Pretty convincing. I mean, there really wasn't any pushback by the Patriots and some good play by our young guys as well. So hopefully they can get some good reps in before their match with Arcadia in mid-February. Moving on to our final segment, we are going to preview track and field. As we've mentioned already, indoor track and field is back this week after about a month and a half hiatus, or actually pushing 2 months. What am I saying? Almost a 2 month hiatus. Their last meet, which was the first meet of the indoor season, was on December 6th. That was up at Alvernia for the Rust Buster, and now they're going back to Alvernia on Saturday, January 31st for the Alvernia Plex Shootout. Alvernia usually hosts like the Plex Shootout. That's kind of their thing, and they have a nice track. Some highlights from the Rust Buster. A lot of the young athletes got their moment to shine to get their first reps in. Jaden Barksdale set an IU program record in 60 meters. Yerlin Ortiz also had a program record in 60-meter hurdles. Colin Corkery finished second in shot put and third in the weight throw. So those are just some of the highlights from the Rustbuster, but hopefully we can get some good results this week at Alvernia, and then they also have a couple meets coming up. So a lot of meets coming up, a lot of action. Connor, I know you guys are kind of chomping at the bit. I know you guys are really trying to get back into action.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, the weather has not really helped with training whatsoever. So I would imagine this is gonna be a Rustbuster meet part two, if I had to guess. At least for me, anyway. I will be running the 5K on Saturday, so 25 laps around the 200-meter track. Should be a lot of fun at 10 in the morning, so can't wait for that.
Oof, oof.
But, we'll see how it goes. I think Aubrey also set a record at the Rustbuster last time in the 5K, so look for her to have another big performance And yeah, a lot of good performances from the last meet. Obviously, Jay Barksdale's been huge for us so far, and he trains hard. I mean, I know he's pretty mad about the snow too. So, because I don't know when we're gonna see our track again, because obviously it might be until March. Obviously, we're below freezing this whole week, so fingers crossed. Hopefully, we'll do okay this week. We'll see.
Guys not going to do the Rocky thing, go out and run through the snow a little bit, you know.
No, I don't do.
Rocky Four, training, running up the mountain, so to speak. It'll be good to see you guys get back into action. Now you start a little run of meets into March where you guys will compete, getting ready for the outdoor season coming up ahead. So we look forward to that. I think now will be a good time to bring in our guest. That will be Jayla Gross of the women's track team. So we will be back after this quick break on the Tuesday Talk IU Athletic Podcast. And welcome back to the Tuesday Talk IU Athletics podcast. We are joined by our guest this week from the women's track and field team. She's also a member of the cross country team, Jayla Gross. Welcome to the show, Jayla.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Obviously, you guys are getting back into competition after some time off this week, so we wanted to bring you in and discuss a few things. What specific events do you compete in track and field?
So I'm a mid-distance runner and I primarily run the 400, the 800, the 15, the mile, and then like some relays like the 4x4 and the DMR.
Would you consider yourself more of a sprinter or more of a distance runner or?
So I used to be a sprinter. I've sprinted like my whole life. And last year, so my sophomore year, I switched over to mid-distance. So I'm like kind of in the middle ground between sprinting and distance running.
How did you decide to get involved in track, and did you try other sports as you were growing up and even like in high school and stuff like that?
I come from a family that's really big into running. My parents actually met at a track meet in high school, which is pretty cool. And we have like a lot of D1 runners in the family, and my brothers run also. So it's just always been like a big part of my life. In high school, I did do other sports. I tried tennis in the fall, and my senior year, I switched over to cross country, which was a pretty cool thing to do. And when I was younger, I did soccer, I did gymnastics, but like track was always my favorite thing to do, and I really enjoy it.
So, Jayla, we've obviously been off from competing since early December. How have you been preparing for this weekend's events? Obviously, it's been difficult. We had just got hammered with a big snowstorm. Temperatures have been freezing, so there's been a lot of difficulties. Like we were running the rotunda last week, for God's sake. So, what have you been doing to prepare?
Just like a mental reset. It's been nice to like focus on training and not really have to worry about the pressures of competing. Since I'm fairly new to mid-distance runner, I've been really focusing on like learning paces and race visualization. But it's definitely hasn't been the easiest considering that like we're covered in snow right now, so it's really difficult to get out there and train and get in speed work. But I just really been focusing on getting a clear state of mind, just the lock in for the season.
Sam told me in the dino that you found a nice clear path. Are you going out there later today?
Yes, I
Battling it.
running around the parking lot, lot D.
You have fun with that. I will not be in attendance.
What is different about you guys have an indoor season and then an outdoor season? What are the differences between competing indoors and outdoors in track?
I would say that indoor doesn't have as much pressure as outdoors since it is cold outside and just like not the best running conditions all the time, especially since we don't have an indoor track. So we use it as like a training block just to get like used to running again after coming off cross country and like focusing more on like that speed work and things like that. So it's mainly just like a mental reset and just like focusing on getting ready for the warmer weather and running on the outdoor track and everything.
So you're kind of saying it's more like a setup for the indoor season becomes more of like a setup for your outdoor season, just for training purposes and allows you to compete a little bit before getting into the outdoor events.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a perfect way to describe it. But the indoor track, it's like a 200-meter track, so it's a little bit more difficult to run on also, like in competing, 'cause it's like really hard and sharp turns. So it's mainly just like to keep in that race mind as well as like putting it on to like the training and everything. So
As a runner, you compete in all three seasons with us. Cross country is in the fall, indoor track is happening now in the winter, and outdoor track in the spring. So how are you balancing all that with your academics?
I would say a lot of schedules. I use like a planner and everything and just like checking things off my checklist. But I've been managing three sports since high school. So I feel like I'm pretty adapted to balancing everything. And it's kind of like roped into my routine at this point. So I don't really like think anything of it. But I couldn't imagine not having the sports along with academics because it kind of just like keeps me on track and allows me to like have a mental de-stress and just go out there and run when I need to.
How does your team support each other on meet days?
I would say it's not really necessarily one thing that they do, but I think it's just like the atmosphere altogether. The track team really does feel like a family. I feel like we're always like, even though it is individual running events, I feel like we're always in it together and everyone's always cheering each other on. And you can like really see the development of each runner in like every single race and in practices. And I just think in all, it's just an amazing atmosphere. And I just love being around my track family.
It was definitely an experience. I came with you guys to the cross country D3 Metro Regionals at the Gloucester County Dream Park and definitely had a family vibe to it. I did not know that I would be part of the sprinting that day as a photographer, but I guess whatever gets the job done. Follow up to that, walk us through what's going through your head right before the gun goes off. I know we asked Mike DiMatteo, the swim team, kind of the same thing like when he's on the block and the gun's about to go off. But for you with track, like what's that moment like?
Really, it all depends. I feel like it all depends per event. I would say from transitioning to sprinting and mid distance. So when I was a sprinter, my race that I would get most nervous about was the 400, and then now that I'm a mid distance runner, it's the 800. So really, in those type of races, my mind is just kind of like blank, and I'm just like just think not even thinking, just like waiting for that gun to go off, just so I can just start running and just for these nerves to just like exit my body and just like transfer on the track. But if I'm running like other events to keep up with just like speed or like endurance training, like the mile or the 400, it's more so just like pacing. Like a lot of my paces go through my mind of what I need to hit and what marks I need to hit at each section of the track. But yeah, so it's always like different things that go through my mind depending on what I'm running and how I'm feeling that day.
So, do you have any goals for yourself and the team this season?
I would say I just push myself and have fun. I would like to get some PRs and my events and just like ultimately just have fun. I think D3 is a perfect balance of getting that competition, but then also having like a fun thing to be a part of. So I'm just very excited for what the season has to come.
Jayla, we thank you for joining us today on the show, and we wish you and the team success this weekend up at Alvernia when they compete in the Plex shootout at the Alvernia Plex complex. So thanks again and good luck.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And we'll be right back after this quick break on the IU Tuesday Talk Athletic Podcast. That will about do it for this week's show. We're looking forward to some big games this week and hopefully have a lot to talk about on next week's show. And hope you'll join us then for episode 19 of the Tuesday Talk IU Athletic Podcast. Until then, rollbacks.